goals and growth. These are central to this discussion. Think about the proliferation of dogs for a second. Who does this truly benefit? We will come back to this shortly. Our species is in trouble, as it has become a source of profit. Many find themselves contributing to the exponential, unimpeded, and limitless growth of another species, Canis lupus familiaris, the common dog. Incidentally, the idea that economic growth can continue forever on a finite planet is a core belief of industrial civilization. Capitalism itself is reliant on growth because it privileges the idea of selfish profit-seeking behavior at the core of the organization of our economy. In general, the blind worship of capitalism is not the answer to social problems because, while it has spurred economic growth, it also generates significant social and economic inequalities, environmental degradation, and instability. A historical analysis is beyond the scope of this video, but you see, dogs themselves are nothing but a market variable. However, so is the targeted consumer. Let us consider how out of hand the dog problem has gotten, and let us briefly pause to reflect on the machinations under which this has been ramped up almost beyond measure. And let's try to understand how goals play a part in this scheme. From a very young age, we are being primed. We are conditioned to think in terms of goals and ambitions, but not goals like becoming a good and thoughtful person or an honorable one. True kindness is seldom, if ever, fostered in extant society and is often, in fact, ridiculed. At any rate, we are conditioned to have goals like, I want to become a doctor, but not because being a doctor is an inner expression of who or what you are. In most cases, it is only done to secure a source of income. Ostensibly, this is done for the purpose of sustaining your own existence. But at a deeper level, it is to feed the system's appetite for you. And of course, the unbridled proliferation of dogs is exactly like this, because you see, from the perspective of various profiteers, dogs are a means to an end. The core tenet of capitalism is the private ownership of the means of production and their operation for profit. This fundamental principle dictates that goods and services are primarily produced not to fulfill societal needs directly, but to generate financial returns for the owners of capital. This profit motive, rather than societal needs and public health, shapes production decisions, influencing what is produced, how it is produced, and for whom it is produced. The driving force behind production in a capitalist system is, perforce, profit maximization. Businesses invest capital in ventures that they believe will yield the highest returns. This leads to a focus on efficiency, cost reduction, and the creation of demand, often through advertising and marketing. The pursuit of profit can lead to innovation and the production of goods and services that improve living standards. However, it can also lead to negative consequences, such as the production of goods that are harmful to consumers or the environment if those goods are profitable. It is important to understand this conflict between profit and public welfare. The main reason dogs are promoted so aggressively is because this benefits commercial interests, and it does so immensely. Remember, when businesses prioritize profit above all else, they can be incentivized to produce goods or services that are detrimental to society. Take the pit bull lobby, for instance. This lobby, as described by various sources, employs several tactics to downplay the public health concerns associated with pit bull-type dogs in terms of their ownership and subsequent presence in society. These strategies often involve misrepresenting data, attacking critics, and promoting a specific narrative about the breed. The pit bull lobby actively promotes a narrative that portrays pit bulls as misunderstood, family-friendly dogs, and victims of unfair discrimination, as if dogs can be discriminated against, as though they were the same as us. As we know, no, dogs are not people. They are not human. But I won't delve too deeply into that here, as it's a topic I've covered extensively elsewhere. Not to mention that this should be a matter of common sense. This narrative often downplays the breed's inherent aggression and focuses on so-called responsible ownership, while simultaneously criticizing breed-specific legislation and spreading misinformation about the nature and origin of these dogs. Best Friends Animal Society, a key player in the pit bull lobby, has been described as working to get, quote, troubled dogs out of shelters and into your home. Another fact to consider: the pet industry is a significant contributor to economic growth, demonstrating a robust and expanding market. The global pet care market was valued at approximately $232 billion in 2023 and is projected to continue growing, driven by rising pet ownership and increased spending per pet. And as we know, the most popular pet by far is the domestic dog. Now think back to when I mentioned goals before. Of course, there is nothing wrong with having goals. But what kind of goals? Alienated goals. That is the problem. The idea that fulfillment, at least according to the American dream, is to have a husband or wife and 2 kids, as well as a dog and a picket fence. This is how we see dog nuttery smuggled in, even alongside a very specific consumerist ethos, one which previously did not include the domestic dog as part of the goal. And it is not just goals, but also what is known as a cultivated identity. Dog owner is definitely that. And again, who does this benefit? Dog ownership is so normalized and has indeed become part of the American dream. And why the hell does the American dream now include a dog? To pull from a Reddit thread,
being able to keep guns and dogs are still symbols of freedom and rugged individualism. Having a dog makes you a self-possessed, unique individual.
If you didn't pick up on the sarcasm there, having a dog these days hardly makes you unique. Dog ownership is, as I said once a long time ago myself, a declaration of conformity at this point. And where does all of this come from? As I wrote myself on Reddit 3 years ago, look at these vast marketing campaigns promoting these mutts as family staples in every home. How the commercial promotion of dog ownership benefits capitalists can be understood by examining several interconnected aspects, including the commodification and transformation of a now largely obsolete human practice, that is to say, dog keeping, which traditionally was a functional relationship related to survival and born purely out of necessity and lack of technological alternatives. That is, if we are to take the pop history of the dog and human relationship at face value. Additionally, we could look at the role of its affect in labor. But what we really want to look at is the expansion of markets for dog and pet-related goods and services. Going back to the pit bull lobby, in real-world practice we see that the adoption of inherently violent dogs, many of which have a known history of aggression, endangers the public. And this is something pit peddlers do, despite knowing the risks. It generally costs money to, quote, adopt a shit bull. Personally, I do not like using this language, as this is more co-opting of human-centric language from dog culture. Here, I am referring to the term adoption, but this is the terminology they use. According to the City Journal, the pit bull lobby's narrative is so dog-centric, it prioritizes the dog's so-called right to social parity with other breeds, over public safety and the suffering of victims. In general, there is a lot of co-opting of human-centric words and concepts used to refer to dogs instead, or as well. According to another source, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC, the pit bull lobby is a multi-million-dollar group with lawyers, lobbyists, and celebrity endorsements. They call themselves an animal rights group, when their sole interest is to promote the ownership, sale, and general presence of dangerous dogs.